'Tis the alien queen's discovery. The crimson halls of the Zephyrian palace stretched endlessly before Captain Marcus Chen as he was escorted by 6 towering guards. Their crystalline armor clinked with each step, creating an eerie symphony that echoed off the polished walls. Marcus kept his expression neutral despite the circumstances that had led him here. His diplomatic mission had gone terribly wrong, and now he found himself a prisoner in the most feared empire in the known galaxy. Queen Zarathis sat upon her throne of living coral, her serpentine form coiled in elegant curves that spoke of both beauty and deadly power. Her scales shimmered between deep purple and silver, catching the light from the bioluminescent fixtures that lined the chamber. 6 arms moved with fluid grace, each adorned with rings that pulsed with ancient power. Her eyes, large and multifaceted like precious gems, fixed on Marcus with obvious disdain. "So this is the human ambassador," her voice carried through the chamber like silk over steel. The translation device in Marcus's ear converted her words, but couldn't hide the contempt in her tone. "How disappointing. Your species sends such a small, fragile creature to speak for them." Marcus stood straighter, his military training keeping him composed. "Your Majesty, I come representing the United Earth Coalition with an offer of peaceful cooperation. Our species may be young, but we have much to offer in trade and knowledge." Queen Zarathis let out a sound that might have been laughter if it hadn't been so cold. Her courtiers, a mixture of reptilian Zephyrians and other subject species, joined in with nervous chuckles. "Young? You humans are barely out of your caves. Tell me, little mammal, what could your primitive species possibly offer the Zephyrian Empire?" "We have developed unique technologies in agriculture, medicine, and quantum engineering," Marcus replied calmly. "Our worlds are rich in rare elements, and our people are skilled craftsmen and warriors." "Warriors?" The queen's tail lashed behind her throne. "Your species fights with chemical projectiles and crude energy weapons. We have conquered 17 star systems with weapons that manipulate matter itself." She gestured to one of her advisors, a thin creature with 4 eyes. "Show him the fleet reports." A holographic display materialized in the air between them, showing massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts. Each ship was easily 10 times the size of humanity's largest vessels, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent weapons arrays. "Your entire military couldn't defeat a single one of our patrol fleets," the Queen continued. "But I suppose that's to be expected from a species with such limited reproductive capacity." Marcus frowned. "I'm not sure I understand your Majesty's meaning." The Queen's laugh was sharper this time. "Oh, how precious. You don't even realize your own biological inadequacy." She rose from her throne, her serpentine lower body allowing her to tower over Marcus even at a distance. "We Zephyrians lay hundreds of eggs at once. A single mating produces enough offspring to crew a starship. Your pathetic species produces 1, maybe 2 offspring at a time." She began to pace, her multiple arms gesturing dramatically. "Do you know what that means for conquest, for colonization, for the simple mathematics of galactic dominance?" Her voice grew mocking. "While you humans spend months nurturing a single infant, we birth entire generations. Your wombs are so limited, so inefficient. It's almost tragic." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks, but forced himself to remain diplomatic. "Human reproduction may be different from yours, but our family structures create strong bonds that—" "Spare me your sentimentality," the Queen interrupted. "Bonds don't matter when you're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Your species will never amount to more than a footnote in galactic history precisely because you can't breed fast enough to matter." The courtiers murmured agreement, some making chittering sounds that Marcus assumed were expressions of amusement. He noticed that several of the alien species present seemed to be taking particular pleasure in humanity's apparent humiliation. "Perhaps," Marcus said carefully, Your Majesty would be interested in a cultural exchange. Human art, literature, philosophy, art from a species that will be extinct in a few centuries? The Queen's scales rippled with colors that Marcus's translator informed him indicated extreme amusement. How quaint. Tell me, human, how many children do you have? The personal question caught Marcus off guard. That's not really relevant to our diplomatic discussions. Oh, but it is, the Queen said, moving closer. Her presence was overwhelming, the scent of ozone and exotic flowers filling the air around her. Let me guess. 1 child? 2 at most? Proof of your species' biological failure. I have a daughter, Marcus admitted, but human parents invest heavily in each child's education and development. Quality over quantity. Quality over quantity, the Queen repeated mockingly. The desperate rationalization of a doomed species. Do you know how many children I have, little human? 237. All of them warriors, scientists, or administrators in my empire. All of them contributing to Zephyrian dominance. She circled him now, her movement hypnotic and predatory. And how many of those children will have children of their own? Hundreds more each. In a single generation, my bloodline alone will number in the tens of thousands. Your entire species produces fewer offspring in a year than I do in a single clutch. Marcus found himself struggling to respond. The numbers were staggering, and he couldn't deny the mathematical advantage they represented. But something about the Queen's certainty bothered him. Your Majesty speaks of breeding as if it's purely about numbers, he said finally. But humans have other advantages. Our adaptability, our innovation under pressure, our ability to form alliances across species barriers. Alliances, the Queen scoffed. Who would ally with a species doomed to extinction? Your reproductive inefficiency makes you a liability, not an asset. She gestured to her court. Every species here has proven their biological worth. The Krillians reproduce through spores that can create thousands of offspring. The Vex split into multiple copies when threatened. Even the lowly Grax lay 50 eggs per cycle. She turned her multifaceted eyes back to Marcus. But humans? Humans are a biological dead end, a cosmic joke. You pour resources into single offspring that may or may not survive to reproductive age, while we create vast populations ready to serve the Empire from birth. The Queen returned to her throne, coiling her serpentine body with elegant disdain. I've heard enough of your desperate proposals. Your species has nothing to offer except perhaps entertainment value as a curiosity. A race so reproductively challenged that they think 1 child at a time is sufficient for survival. Marcus felt his diplomatic composure beginning to crack. Your Majesty, human civilization has thrived for thousands of years with our reproductive patterns. We've gone from cave dwellers to starfarers in a geological instant. Perhaps efficiency isn't just about numbers. Thrived? The Queen's scales shifted to what Marcus was learning indicated mockery. You've barely left your home system. You have a handful of colonies and call yourself starfarers. We have 17 systems and are still expanding. That's the difference between a reproductively successful species and a failed one. She leaned forward on her throne. I'll make you a bargain, human ambassador. I won't simply have you executed for wasting my time. Instead, you'll remain here as a living example of human inadequacy. My court could use some entertainment, and watching a member of a reproductively doomed species struggle with basic reality should provide weeks of amusement. The guards stepped forward, but Marcus raised his hand. Your Majesty, you speak with great confidence about reproductive superiority, but quantity and quality aren't the same thing. Your offspring may number in the hundreds, but what of their individual capabilities? Individual capabilities are irrelevant when you have overwhelming numbers, the Queen replied. 1 genius among 1,000 is worth less than 100 competent individuals. Perhaps, Marcus said, but humans have a saying, It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. The Queen's expression showed puzzlement at the translation. What nonsense is this? It means that determination, creativity, and individual excellence can overcome numerical disadvantages. Human history is full of examples where smaller forces defeated larger ones through superior tactics, technology, or simple refusal to surrender. Your species' delusions are almost touching, the Queen said. But mathematics doesn't care about your inspirational stories. When my fleets arrive at Earth, your billion humans will face trillions of Zephyrian warriors. Your reproductive limitations have doomed you. Marcus was about to respond when a commotion erupted at the chamber entrance. A messenger burst in, its crystalline armor cracked and scorched. It approached the throne with obvious urgency. "Your Majesty," the messenger gasped, "the human colony at Kepler 442 has repelled our advance fleet." The chamber fell silent. The Queen's scales shifted through several colors Marcus couldn't interpret. "Impossible. We sent a full battle group against a minor colonial outpost. The humans deployed unknown defensive technologies," the messenger continued. "They've also managed to evacuate their civilian population to mobile habitats that our sensors couldn't track." Marcus felt a surge of pride but kept his expression neutral. The Queen's eyes fixed on him with new intensity. "A minor setback," she said finally. "One small victory doesn't change the fundamental mathematics of reproduction." But Marcus could see doubt creeping into her perfect confidence. He decided to press his advantage. "Your Majesty, perhaps the mathematics aren't as simple as you believe. Humans may reproduce slowly, but every human child receives intensive education, emotional support, and individual attention that creates highly capable adults. We don't just breed for numbers, we breed for excellence." The Queen's tail lashed again, but this time Marcus sensed uncertainty rather than dismissal. The news of the failed attack had clearly shaken her assumptions about human weakness. "Guards," she commanded, "take the human to the isolation chambers. I need time to consider this development." As Marcus was led away, he caught a glimpse of the Queen touching her lower abdomen with one of her hands, a gesture that seemed unconscious and troubled. For the first time since his arrival, he felt that humanity might have a chance. The isolation chamber was sparse but comfortable, clearly designed for prisoners of rank. Marcus sat on the provided sleeping platform and allowed himself a small smile. The Queen's absolute certainty about reproductive superiority had been shaken by news of human military success. Perhaps there were other assumptions he could challenge as well. Outside his chamber, he could hear increased activity in the palace corridors. Messengers arriving, urgent conversations in the hissing Zephyrian language. Whatever was happening at Kepler 442, it was bigger than one failed attack. Marcus settled in to wait. He had the feeling that his diplomatic mission was far from over, and that Queen Zarathis's confidence in reproductive mathematics might face even greater challenges in the days ahead. The Queen's transformation. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus's imprisonment, and the palace had become a hive of increasingly frantic activity. From his chamber window, he could see Zephyrian ships arriving and departing with unusual frequency. The guards who brought his meals spoke in hushed tones about troubles in the outer systems, though they clammed up whenever they noticed him listening. It was during the 4th week that Queen Zarathis herself appeared at his chamber door, alone and without the ceremonial armor she typically wore. Her scales seemed duller somehow, and Marcus noticed she moved with less of the fluid grace he'd observed during their first encounter. "Human," she said, her voice lacking its previous commanding tone. "I require your counsel." Marcus stood from where he'd been reading on a datapad the guards had provided. "Your Majesty, this is unexpected." "Don't mock me," she snapped. though the bite was gone from her words. "Your species has proven more troublesome than anticipated." She entered the chamber fully, and Marcus was surprised to see her close the door behind her. Without her usual entourage and formal setting, the Queen seemed smaller, more vulnerable. "The reports from the outer systems," Marcus ventured. "Not going well?" The Queen's scales flickered through colors Marcus had learned, indicated frustration and anger. 7 colonial worlds have declared independence. 3 outer fleets have refused direct orders. And somehow, impossibly, human settlements are not only surviving our assault fleets, but actively assisting our rebel colonies. Marcus felt a surge of pride, but tried not to let it show on his face. "Human settlements are helping your people rebel?" "It makes no sense," the Queen continued, beginning to pace in the confined space. "Why would a numerically insignificant species involve themselves in our internal conflicts? What could they possibly gain?" "Maybe they believe in freedom," Marcus suggested. "Human philosophy values individual liberty and self-determination pretty highly." "Philosophy," the Queen scoffed, but without her previous venom. "Your species risks extinction to support abstract concepts?" "Human history shows that some principles are worth fighting for, regardless of the odds." The Queen stopped pacing and fixed those multifaceted eyes on him. "Explain this to me. Your species knows you're outnumbered. You know we could sterilize every human world if we chose to concentrate our full military might, yet you not only resist, but actively aid our enemies. What rational calculation supports such behavior?" Marcus considered his words carefully. "Your Majesty spoke before about reproductive mathematics, but humans have learned that survival isn't just about numbers. It's about building something worth preserving, communities, values, relationships that transcend simple breeding success." "More sentiment," the Queen muttered, but she sat heavily on the chamber's single chair, her serpentine form coiling in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as exhaustion. "Is your Majesty feeling well?" he asked, noting her unusual posture and the way she kept unconsciously touching her midsection. The Queen's head snapped up. "Why do you ask?" "You seem different, less energetic than when we first met." For a long moment, the Queen stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. But it wasn't the cold, mocking sound from their first encounter. This laugh carried notes of hysteria and disbelief. "Different," she repeated. "Oh, human, you have no idea how different." Marcus waited, sensing that something significant was about to be revealed. "I am with child," the Queen said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Congratulations," Marcus said automatically, though he was confused by her obvious distress. "Though I'm surprised your Majesty seems troubled by what should be good news." The Queen's scales shifted through a rapid sequence of colors. "You don't understand. This pregnancy is impossible." "Impossible how?" "Zephyrian reproduction requires specific conditions," the Queen explained, her voice taking on an almost clinical tone. "Multiple partners, synchronized biorhythms, chemical catalysts produced by our ceremonial foods. The process takes place only during our mating seasons, which occur every 3 standard years." Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure where this was leading. "It has been 18 months since the last mating season," the Queen continued, "and I have been with no Zephyrian partners. This pregnancy should not exist." A chill ran down Marcus's spine as implications began to form. "Your Majesty, when exactly did this pregnancy begin?" "Approximately 4 weeks ago," she said, her eyes never leaving his face. "The same time you arrived at my palace." The chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of the palace's biomechanical systems. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as he processed the information. "That's coincidence," he said weakly. Surely there's another explanation. The Queen's laugh returned, bitter now. I thought so too. But Zephyrian medical science is quite advanced, human. We can determine paternity with absolute precision. She paused. Her scales shifting to what Marcus had learned indicated profound disturbance. The child is half human. Marcus sat down hard on his sleeping platform. That's impossible. Our species aren't even genetically compatible. So our scientists insisted, the Queen agreed. Yet here we are. The bioscans show clearly that this offspring carries genetic material from both species, something that every expert in the galaxy would say cannot happen. But how? Marcus asked, his mind reeling. We've barely been in the same room together. We've never even touched. The Queen's expression grew thoughtful. Haven't we? You've been breathing our atmosphere, eating food prepared in our kitchens. Your skin has been exposed to the same air I breathe. She touched her midsection again. Zephyrian reproductive biology is more complex than most species realize. Under certain circumstances, genetic material can be transmitted through unconventional means. Marcus stared at her. You're saying that just being near each other was enough? Apparently so. Though this has never happened before with any other species. Her voice took on a note of wonder mixed with fear. The medical staff is baffled. They can't explain how human genetic material could possibly integrate with Zephyrian reproductive systems. What does this mean? Marcus asked. For the child, for our species, for the Empire. The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. I don't know. Zephyrian pregnancies typically last 6 months and result in large clutches of offspring. But this is following completely different patterns. Single offspring, extended gestation period. It's as if the child is developing according to human reproductive biology rather than mine. Marcus felt a strange, protective instinct rising. Is the child healthy? As far as we can determine, yes. But the implications... The Queen's scales shifted through several colors in rapid succession. Everything I said about human reproductive inadequacy, about the mathematical impossibility of your species' survival, if humans can somehow crossbreed with other species, especially involuntarily, the mathematics change, Marcus finished quietly. More than change. They become irrelevant. The Queen's voice carried a note of wonder and terror. If humans can create hybrid offspring with any species they encounter, then numerical superiority becomes meaningless. You could integrate with our population, with any population. Your genetic adaptability could make you the ultimate survivors. Marcus felt a chill as he considered the implications. Your Majesty, this could change everything between our species. Could? The Queen laughed again, but this time with genuine mirth. Human. It already has. Do you think word of this hasn't spread? The royal physicians couldn't keep such a discovery secret. By now half the galaxy knows that the Zephyrian Queen is carrying the child of a human diplomat. How are people reacting? With panic, the Queen admitted. Species that have built their entire identity around reproductive superiority are suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew. The revolts in the outer systems have accelerated as non-Zephyrian species begin to wonder what other impossible things humans might be capable of. She stood and began pacing again, her movement more animated than it had been since entering the chamber. But there's something else. Something the medical staff discovered that they're too frightened to tell me directly. What? The Queen stopped and faced him directly. The child isn't just half human and half Zephyrian. It's somehow carrying beneficial traits from both species. Enhanced intelligence from human neural development patterns, improved physical capabilities from Zephyrian genetics, and some entirely new characteristics that neither species possesses alone. Marcus felt his breath catch. A hybrid that's superior to both parent species? It appears so. And if that's true for one child, The Queen trailed off, but the implication hung in the air between them. "It changes the entire concept of species competition," Marcus said slowly. "Instead of fighting for dominance, species could potentially benefit from cooperation." "Exactly. Your reproductive inadequacy might actually be an evolutionary advantage, quality over quantity, as you said, but quality that can improve other species as well." The Queen's scales shifted to colors Marcus was learning indicated deep thought. "I mocked human fertility. But what if human fertility is actually the most advanced form of reproduction in the galaxy?" Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the busy palace courtyard. "Your Majesty, what happens now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I do know that everything I believed about humans was wrong. Your species isn't a biological dead end. You might be the next step in galactic evolution." She moved to stand beside him at the window. "The question is, what do we do with this knowledge?" Marcus thought about his daughter back on Earth, about the future humanity might be walking into, about the responsibilities that came with such unexpected power. "We figure it out together," he said finally. "Human and Zephyrian, for the sake of our child, and maybe for the sake of the galaxy." The Queen's scales shifted to colors Marcus had never seen before, complex patterns that seemed to indicate emotions for which human language had no words. But when she spoke, her voice carried notes of hope that transcended any need for translation. "Yes," she said simply. "Together." The New Alliance. 6 months had transformed the Zephyrian Empire beyond recognition. Marcus stood in what had once been the Queen's throne room, now converted into a diplomatic center where representatives from dozens of species gathered daily. The massive coral throne had been replaced with a circular table, symbolizing the equality that Queen Zarathis had embraced since her world-changing discovery. The Queen herself moved carefully around the chamber, her pregnancy now visible even beneath the flowing robes she'd adopted. The child was due any day now, and the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the birth that would prove or disprove the theories that had emerged from the impossible union. "The Andromedan Federation has agreed to the Mutual Defense Pact," announced Ambassador Teketh, a crystalline being whose species had been among the first to recognize the implications of human-alien reproduction. "They're particularly interested in the agricultural exchange programs." Marcus nodded, making notes on his datapad. His role had evolved from prisoner to informal human representative, though Earth's official diplomatic corps was still weeks away from arriving. The rapid pace of change had caught everyone off guard, including his own government. "What about the hegemony worlds?" asked Dr. Sarah Chen, the human xenobiologist who had arrived 2 weeks earlier as part of the advance team. She was also Marcus's sister, though their reunion had been overshadowed by the magnitude of the situation they found themselves in. "Holding out," Queen Zarathis replied, settling carefully into her chair. "They're still convinced this is some kind of human trick. The idea that their reproductive supremacy might be challenged by cooperation rather than conquest doesn't fit their worldview." Marcus looked up from his notes. "Have they responded to the medical data we shared?" "They claim it's fabricated," Dr. Chen said with obvious frustration, "despite having their own scientists verify the genetic scans. Some prejudices run too deep for evidence to overcome quickly." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. The chamber's communications system activated, displaying the image of Admiral Harrison, commander of Earth's expeditionary fleet. "Captain Chen," the Admiral's voice carried clearly across the chamber. "I trust you're prepared for our arrival?" Marcus stood straighter, unconsciously adopting military posture. "Yes, sir. The Zephyrians have prepared docking facilities for the fleet, and security protocols are in place." "Good, because you're about to have company. Long-range sensors show at least 12 different fleets converging on this system. Looks like half the galaxy wants to witness this birth firsthand. Queen Zarathis shifted uncomfortably. How many of those fleets are hostile, Admiral? Hard to say. Your Majesty, the situation is fluid. Some species are clearly here to assess the threat human reproduction might pose. Others seem genuinely interested in alliance. A few are probably just curious. And the hegemony? Marcus asked. The Admiral's expression grew grim. 3 of their battle fleets are en route. They've declared their intention to correct this genetic aberration before it can spread. Silence fell over the chamber. The hegemony represented the most militaristic alliance in the known galaxy, species that had built their entire civilization around the concept of biological purity and reproductive dominance. How long until they arrive? The Queen asked. 4 days, maybe less if they push their engines. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Your Majesty, with respect, you shouldn't be dealing with military threats in your condition. The stress alone could complicate the birth. The Queen's scales rippled with colors Marcus had learned indicated stubborn determination. This child represents the future of interspecies cooperation. I won't hide while others decide whether that future should be allowed to exist. A new voice entered the conversation as General Vextar, the Queen's military commander, approached the communication display. The defense fleets are ready, Admiral Harrison, but our combined forces are outnumbered 3-1 by the Hegemony Alliance. Understood, General. Earth's fleet will coordinate with your forces, but we're looking at a difficult battle. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This conflict was happening because of him, because of choices he'd made and circumstances beyond his control. The child the Queen carried was as much his as hers, and the galaxy was preparing for war over its existence. There might be another way, he said slowly, drawing surprised looks from everyone in the chamber. Explain, the Queen commanded. The hegemony is coming here because they see the child as a threat to their biological supremacy. But what if we could demonstrate that human reproduction doesn't threaten their species, but could actually benefit them? Dr. Chen frowned. Marcus, we don't know enough about the mechanics of human crossbreeding to make promises like that. But we know it happened once, Marcus countered, and we know the resulting child appears to have beneficial traits from both parent species. What if we offered the hegemony the opportunity to study the process under controlled conditions? Admiral Harrison's image leaned forward. You're suggesting we turn our greatest advantage into a diplomatic offering? I'm suggesting we turn our greatest mystery into a bridge between species, Marcus corrected. The hegemony fears human reproduction because they don't understand it. Understanding breeds cooperation, not conflict. Queen Zarathis touched her swollen abdomen thoughtfully. It's a risk. If the hegemony gains access to human reproductive capabilities, they could potentially use that knowledge against other species. But if they don't gain that access through cooperation, they'll try to take it through conquest, Marcus pointed out. At least this way, we maintain some control over the process. The chamber fell quiet as everyone considered the implications. The communication system chimed again, indicating another incoming message. This is Science Director Yoth of the Hegemony Fleet, a harsh voice announced. We demand immediate surrender of the human called Marcus Chen for study and termination. The genetic contamination he represents will not be permitted to spread. The Queen's scales shifted to angry reds and oranges. This is Queen Zarathis of the Zephyrian Empire. The human Marcus Chen is under our protection. Any attempt to take him by force will be considered an act of war. Your protection is meaningless, Serpent Queen. Our fleets will arrive in 87 hours. Surrender the human and the abomination you carry, or watch your empire burn. The connection terminated abruptly, leaving the chamber in tense silence. Well, Dr. Chen said dryly, that could have gone better. Marcus stood and walked to the chamber's great window, looking out at the stars where enemy fleets were already approaching. "Your Majesty, I have a proposal." "I'm listening." "Let me go to them, alone. If I can convince even one hegemony species that human reproduction represents opportunity rather than threat, it might be enough to split their alliance." "Absolutely not," the Queen said firmly. "You heard them. They want you for study and termination." "They want to understand human reproduction," Marcus corrected. "I can give them that understanding without giving them the ability to exploit it." Admiral Harrison's voice cut across the chamber. "Captain Chen, as your commanding officer, I'm ordering you to reconsider this plan. We need you alive and functional. With respect, sir, you need the information I carry more than you need me personally." Marcus turned back to face the room. "I'm the proof that human reproduction can bridge species barriers. But more importantly, I'm the evidence that it happens through cooperation, not domination." Queen Zarathis struggled to her feet, her pregnancy making the movement difficult. "Marcus, you're asking me to let you sacrifice yourself for a diplomatic possibility. As the mother of your child, I forbid it." The words hung in the air, and Marcus felt their emotional weight. The Queen had never explicitly acknowledged their personal relationship before this moment. "As the father of that child," Marcus replied gently, "I have to do everything possible to ensure they're born into a galaxy where cooperation is possible." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "There might be a compromise. What if Marcus doesn't go alone? What if we send a joint delegation? Human and Zephyrian scientists together, offering to share research under mutual observation." General Vextar's scales showed colors indicating deep thought. "It could work. The hegemony values scientific achievement almost as much as military conquest. A chance to study unprecedented genetic compatibility might appeal to their research castes." "And if it doesn't?" the Queen asked. "Then we fight," Admiral Harrison said grimly. "But at least we'll have tried diplomacy first." Marcus felt a sudden movement from the Queen and turned to see her gripping the edge of the table, her face contorted with pain. "Your Majesty?" Dr. Chen moved quickly to her side. "The child," the Queen gasped. "It's starting." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The Queen was moved to the palace's medical center, where Zephyrian and human medical staff worked together to monitor the unprecedented birth. Marcus found himself pacing the corridor outside, fielding updates from approaching fleets and trying to coordinate diplomatic responses, while his attention remained focused on the doorway, where the future was being decided. Dr. Chen emerged first, her face showing exhaustion, but also wonder. "How are they?" Marcus asked immediately. "Mother and child are both healthy," she reported. "But Marcus, you need to see this." She led him into the medical chamber, where Queen Zarathis lay propped against bioluminescent pillows, holding a small bundle. As Marcus approached, she looked up with an expression of joy mixed with amazement. "Meet your daughter," she said softly, turning the bundle so Marcus could see the tiny face within. The child was beautiful in a way that transcended species barriers. Her features showed clearly the blend of human and Zephyrian heritage, with scales that shimmered like jewelry and eyes that held unmistakably human warmth. But there was something else, something that made Marcus catch his breath. "She's generating her own bioluminescence," Dr. Chen explained. "Not from Zephyrian genetics, not from human genetics, but from some entirely new biological process. She's literally creating light through mechanisms that neither parent species possesses." Marcus reached out carefully, and the child's tiny hand grasped his finger. The moment of contact sent a shock through him that he couldn't explain. "She's telepathic," the Queen whispered. "I can feel her thoughts. Not words, but emotions, intentions. She's aware in ways that newborns shouldn't be. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. This child wasn't just a hybrid. She was something genuinely new, a form of life that combined the best aspects of two species while adding capabilities that neither possessed alone. "The galaxy is about to change," he said quietly. The Queen nodded. "And we have less than 2 days to convince the hegemony that change doesn't have to mean destruction." As if summoned by their words, General Vextar appeared in the doorway. "Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion, but we've received a priority message from the hegemony fleet. They're demanding proof that the birth has taken place and that the child shows no dangerous mutations." Marcus looked down at his daughter, glowing softly with her own inner light, her young mind already reaching out to touch the thoughts of those around her. Dangerous mutations seemed like an inadequate description for what she represented. "Tell them," the Queen said firmly, "that they're welcome to send a scientific delegation to observe our daughter, under our protection with our safeguards, but with complete scientific transparency." "Your Majesty, are you certain?" General Vextar asked. The Queen looked at Marcus, then down at their child. "I'm certain that this little one represents the future of the galaxy, and futures shouldn't be hidden in darkness. They should shine for all to see." As if responding to her mother's words, the child's bioluminescence pulsed brighter, filling the medical chamber with warm, welcoming light. Marcus felt a surge of protective love mixed with determination. The hegemony was coming to judge whether his daughter deserved to exist. But looking at her now, feeling the peaceful intelligence that radiated from her tiny form, he knew that the real question wasn't whether the galaxy was ready for her. The question was whether she would choose to help the galaxy become ready for itself. Outside the medical center, fleets from dozens of species continued their approach, drawn by reports of the impossible child whose very existence was reshaping the foundations of galactic civilization. The next few days would determine whether that reshaping led to war or to a new form of peace based on cooperation rather than conquest. Marcus held his daughter close and prepared to fight for her future, knowing that success would mean not victory over other species, but the creation of a galaxy where all species could evolve together towards something greater than any of them could achieve alone.